Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. I knew from the moment I turned off the highway and onto that winding, overgrown path that something was wrong. The silence was deafening. I'm used to quiet roads, sure, but this wasn't like that. There was no hum of wind, no rustling of leaves, just stillness. The kind of stillness that feels like the air itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And as my tires crunched against the gravel, I couldn't shake the feeling that the earth itself was holding me hostage. The mansion finally came into view, looming ahead like a dark, forgotten giant. Its spires cut through the cloudy sky, and its windows, those empty, hollow eyes, stared down at me with a cold, lifeless gaze. I've sold plenty of properties over the years, but this one felt different. It was big, way bigger than I expected. But it was more than that. The air around it was heavy, like the house itself was breathing in slow, deliberate pulls. I parked my car and stepped out, my heels clicking against the cracked stone as I made my way up the front steps. The house loomed above me, suffocating. It felt like it was watching me, waiting for something. But I couldn't tell if it was my imagination playing tricks on me or something far worse. Shaking off the unease, I muttered to myself, "It's just a house, just another fixer-upper." But even as I thought those words, I knew I wasn't being entirely honest with myself. The house, there was something off about it. Something I couldn't place. The front door was slightly ajar, the wood cracked and weathered. I reached out to push it open, and it creaked loudly in protest, as if the house itself didn't want me to come inside. But I was already here. No turning back now. With a deep breath, I stepped across the threshold. Immediately, the air inside hit me, a cold, musty smell that made my skin crawl. It was a mixture of mildew, dust, and something else I couldn't quite identify. The kind of smell that sticks to your clothes and stays with you for hours. The grand foyer was huge, so much bigger than I expected, but it was like the house was suffocating under its own weight. The chandelier overhead was crooked, its crystals dull and covered in layers of grime. The marble floors were cracked, as if time had eaten away at them, leaving only the remnants of what they once were. I moved further in, feeling a strange tug at my chest. The house was old, that was obvious, but there was more to it than that. Something beneath the surface. Something that made the air feel thicker, like the walls themselves were alive, breathing with me. The whispers in my head told me I should leave. But I didn't. I had a job to do. This was just another deal, another house. That's what I told myself anyway. My hand brushed against the wall, and I couldn't help but notice the way the wood felt under my fingertips. Cold, almost too cold for a house this warm. I pulled my hand back quickly, the unease creeping up my spine. I didn't even realize I'd stopped moving until I heard it again. At first, it was so soft I thought it was just my imagination. A whisper, just on the edge of hearing. My name. Claire. I froze. I told myself it was the wind, or the house settling, or maybe even some animal in the walls. But no, it wasn't that. This was different. The voice sounded too real, too human. I swallowed hard and shook my head. "You're hearing things, Claire. Just a draft. Nothing more." I tried to convince myself, but my feet refused to move. My heart was pounding in my chest now. The silence in the room was suffocating, pressing in on me from every direction. I turned my head slowly, scanning the space, expecting to see something, anything, but there was nothing. Then I heard it again. The whisper, clearer this time, wrapping itself around my name like a cold hand on my skin. "Claire, help me." The voice was weak, desperate, like it was calling from the walls themselves. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. It's nothing. Just a trick of the mind, a sound, a draft. But then the air grew colder, so cold I could see my breath in front of me. I spun around, eyes darting frantically, but still, there was nothing. Just the emptiness of the house. And then, the door behind me slammed shut. Hard, the sound echoed through the house, rattling my bones. I rushed to the door, my hand gripping the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It was stuck. No, this wasn't happening. I turned to face the room, feeling the walls closing in on me. This was ridiculous. I had to get out of here. "Hello?" My voice was shaky now. I cleared my throat and tried again, more forcefully. "Who's there?" I demanded. But nothing answered, except the whispers. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me. More voices now, layered on top of one another, some pleading, some screaming. They called my name, they knew me. "Claire," they whispered again, soft and insistent, like they were right behind me. I spun around, expecting to see someone standing there, someone I could yell at, someone I could blame for this insanity. But there was no one. Just the walls closing in, breathing in time with me. I backed away slowly, my body trembling with every step. And then, just as I thought I was going to lose my mind, I saw it. My name, carved into the wall. My breath caught in my throat as I took a step closer. There it was, faint but unmistakable. Claire Manning. Carved into the wood, as if it had been there for years, maybe decades. My heart hammered in my chest. This wasn't possible. I'd never been here before, so how could my name be written in the walls? I ran my fingers across the wood, a cold chill crawling up my arm. "Impossible," I whispered to myself, trying to shake off the rising panic. I took a step back, but the whispering grew louder, pressing against me from every side. It was everywhere, 1,000 voices all speaking at once, drowning out my thoughts, drowning out everything. And then, just as I was about to bolt for the door, the house groaned. The floor beneath my feet shifted, and the walls seemed to tighten around me, pushing me forward. The house wasn't just a house. It was something alive, and it wasn't letting me go. I don't know why I was still standing there, in that cold, haunted hallway, after what had just happened. The whispers in the house, that unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach, it was all starting to get to me. And then, out of nowhere, a voice, deep, gravelly, cut through the whispers. It startled me, jerking me back to reality. I spun around so fast I almost lost my balance. "You shouldn't be here," the voice said, calm yet firm. My heart slammed against my ribs as I took in the figure standing in front of me. A man, tall, with pale eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. His face was lined with age, his coat dark and worn, like it had lived through decades of storms. He didn't belong here, I thought. He shouldn't have been here. There was something wrong about him. But still, I couldn't look away. He stepped forward with an unsettling confidence, like he was perfectly at home in this decaying place. "My name is Thomas Avery," he said, his voice carrying an almost unnatural calm. But there was an urgency in his eyes. I could see it in the way he looked at me, like he was seeing something I couldn't. "I've been researching this house for years," he continued, his voice carrying weight, like every word had been dragged from the depths of something darker than I could understand. and I've seen what it does to people. I should have laughed. I wanted to. I wanted to brush him off as another local crazy, someone who had spent too much time on wild theories about haunted houses and old folklore. But the way he spoke, the intensity behind his words, something about it felt real. I could feel it. Researching? I scoffed, crossing my arms. What, like ghost stories? Thomas didn't flinch, didn't break his gaze. His eyes remained locked on mine, steady, unblinking, like he could see something I couldn't. "This isn't a ghost story," he said, his voice still soft but heavy. "This house, this place, is something far worse." I blinked, suddenly unsure of myself. Worse? What could be worse than some dusty old house? It's just a building. I've sold worse places before, trust me. He stepped closer, and for the first time I felt a chill that wasn't just the draft in the air. It went deeper than that, settling under my skin. "It's alive," he said, the words slow and deliberate, like he was sharing a terrible secret. "This house isn't just old, it's breathing. It feeds on the souls of those who live here." I laughed, but it came out wrong, forced. "You've got to be kidding me." His face didn't change. It watches, it chooses who stays. His words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "And now it's chosen you." My stomach twisted, an uncomfortable feeling crawling up my spine. I shifted on my feet, uncomfortable, but tried to play it cool. "What are you talking about? I'm here to sell this house. I don't have time for these crazy theories." But Thomas wasn't backing down. His eyes were hard now, the sorrow in them replaced with something darker, something more urgent. "The house won't let you leave. Once it calls you by name, once you've heard it." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "It won't let you go. It takes you." I opened my mouth, ready to argue, but my throat felt dry. "Takes me? What do you mean by that?" The words felt wrong even as I said them. His eyes darkened, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The house absorbs you. It devours you. You become one of its whispers, Claire." His words hung in the air like a poison, sinking deep into my chest. All those who lived here before, every single one of them, vanished. Not because they left, they were taken. The house consumes them, consumes their soul, their memory, their very voice, and then you're part of it, forever. Felt my breath catch. The walls around me felt like they were pressing in, suffocating me. This couldn't be happening. It couldn't be true. It was just a house, just an old house. But the fear was bubbling in my chest, tightening my throat. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't find my voice. "No," I whispered. "No, this is nonsense. People don't disappear into their houses. They just, you don't understand." He interrupted, his voice suddenly urgent, desperate. "You don't understand, Claire. I've seen it happen over and over. The house doesn't want to let go. Once it has you, it never lets you leave. You'll be trapped, just like the others. Part of its walls, part of its whispers." I backed away slowly, my hands shaking. His words were starting to make sense in a way I didn't want them to. A deep, gnawing terror was taking root in my gut. My voice was barely a whisper. I don't believe you," he sighed, looking past me, as if he saw something in the shadows that I couldn't. "You don't have to believe me," he said softly. "But the house doesn't care whether you believe. It's already watching you. It's waiting for you." I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I tried to move, to push past him, but my feet felt heavy, like I was walking through molasses. My mind was reeling, but my body didn't want to move. And then, Thomas did something I wasn't prepared for. He stepped back, turning toward the dark hallway. He was leaving. But before he disappeared into the shadows, he looked back at me one last time, his expression a mix of regret and warning. "You don't have much time," he said, his voice echoing as he stepped into the darkness. "Leave, before it's too late, before it takes you too." I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words never came. The house groaned, the floorboards creaked, and I realized, too late, that I was already in its grip. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe just a typical old house with a few creaks and groans, but what I felt in that moment wasn't something I could explain. I'd dismissed Thomas's warnings as just local folklore, ghost stories, the kind of nonsense people talk about to pass the time. But the moment he disappeared into the shadows, I felt the change. I felt the house watching me, suffocating me. I backed away from the spot where he had stood, but my legs felt heavy. The air, stale and thick, seemed to press in from all sides, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I stumbled, my hands reaching out to steady myself, but there was nowhere to go. That's when I noticed it. The room around me wasn't the same. The walls, they were closing in. Not physically, not in a way I could see, but somehow I could feel them, as if the space itself had become smaller, tighter, more oppressive. The air was heavier, cold, and then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of something moving in the dark. I spun around, my heart in my throat, but the hallway was empty. I didn't know what I had expected, maybe a shadow, maybe someone standing behind me, but there was nothing. Only the echo of my breath and the silence of the house, thick and suffocating. I reached for the door, the one I had entered through, but it wasn't there anymore. I blinked. What the hell? I turned in a circle, panic beginning to claw at the back of my throat. The door I'd just walked through, gone. The hallway had stretched or warped. The room, the entire place, felt different now, like the walls were alive, like they could breathe. The floor creaked beneath my feet. It felt like I wasn't walking on solid ground. No, more like I was walking on something else. Something that was shifting beneath me, pulling me down. This can't be happening, I whispered to myself, trying to push the rising panic down, but it wasn't working. The house was closing in around me. I could feel it. The whispers began again. Soft at first, barely more than a murmur, but they grew louder with every step I took. It was like the house itself was speaking to me, urging me to come closer, urging me to listen. I pressed my hands to my ears, trying to block them out, but it didn't help. "Claire?" The sound of my name made my stomach drop. I couldn't tell if it was the walls or something else, but it felt as though the very house itself had learned me, knew who I was, had been waiting for me. I stumbled backward. No, this isn't real. But I knew it was. I felt it in my bones. The house was alive. It wasn't just wood and stone, it was something more, something darker. And then I saw them, flickering at the edges of my vision, shapes, shadows. But they weren't shadows. They were faces. Faces pressed against the walls, their features distorted, their eyes wide and frozen in terror. I tried to scream, but no sound came. Their mouths opened in silent screams. They were trapped in the walls, just like they had been for God knows how long. The house was feeding on them. I could feel it. The walls were alive, and they were hungry. "Help! Help me!" The voices whispered, layered together, overlapping. Whispers that weren't just in the air, but inside me, inside my mind. Each whisper burrowing deeper until I could feel them crawling through my veins. It was too much. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I turned, desperate to find a way out. I couldn't be in here anymore. I couldn't be part of whatever was happening. I tried the door again, my hands shaking, but it was still gone. I could feel the pressure of the walls, the house. It was pulling me in, and then I saw it, the door, at the end of the hallway. I couldn't explain it. It hadn't been there before, but there it was, this door, flickering in the shadows like it was pulsing, alive. It was beckoning me. I didn't want to go. I knew I shouldn't, but my feet moved toward it against my will, as though the house itself was guiding me, pulling me forward. I reached out toward the door, my fingers trembling. And then, as I touched it, as I made contact with it, I saw it. Etched into the door, carved into the wood, my name. My blood turned to ice. No, it couldn't be, it couldn't. This wasn't happening. This was insane. I had never been here before. How could my name, be on that door? I stepped back, my body trembling. This isn't happening. This isn't real. But the voices, my voice, whispered again, louder, all around me. Claire, come closer. I took another step, and the door creaked open of its own accord. I felt a pressure on my chest, as if something were squeezing the life from me. And then, just as I was about to turn and run, the voice spoke again. This time, it was clear, and it was unmistakable. It was my voice, but twisted. Welcome home, Claire. I spun around. The hallway stretched before me like an endless abyss, but there was nowhere to run. The walls closed in around me. The house was no longer just a building. It was a creature, a predator, and I was its prey. I couldn't escape. I knew it now. The house had already taken me. My legs buckled beneath me as I stumbled forward, as though the walls themselves were pulling me into them. The house, the walls, the faces. They were all one now. A chorus of whispers, a prison of despair. And as I was drawn toward that door, my name repeating itself over and over in the darkness, I realized the truth. The house had chosen me. I couldn't breathe. The air was so thick it felt like I was inhaling stone. My chest was heavy, every breath a struggle, and I knew the house was doing this. It was pressing against me, suffocating me, tightening its grip as if it were feeding on my fear. It was alive, and it was alive with hunger. My fear fed it, and the more I fought, the tighter it held me. I tried to scream. I wanted to scream. But no sound came. My mouth moved, but nothing. The house had already stolen my voice. It had already taken that from me. Every movement felt sluggish, heavy, like I was dragging myself through molasses. I needed to move. I needed to get out. But the house wouldn't let me. The air, God, it was alive, crawling through me, suffocating me from all sides. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, as if they were breathing in sync with my own ragged gasps. I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My feet, why couldn't I move my damn feet? The floor beneath me felt unstable, as though the ground had become fluid, alive. It seemed to ripple, to shift beneath my weight, pulling me back. Every time I tried to push forward, I was pulled back. No, I whispered, barely more than a breath, but my voice was swallowed by the thick silence that surrounded me. My legs buckled, and I collapsed to my knees, my hands digging into the floorboards, trying to steady myself. But even the floorboards weren't still. The wood beneath my palms seemed to quiver, like it was alive. Come to us. The whisper came again, only this time it wasn't from the walls. No, it was from inside me. It felt like a cold hand wrapping around my spine, pulling me, urging me forward. The walls, the house, it knew me. It knew who I was. It had been waiting for me. And then I saw it, the door. The door I had seen before. But this time, it wasn't just a door. No, this time it pulled at me, called to me. My body moved without me. My feet, no, the house dragged me, inch by inch, closer to that door, to the darkness beyond. The cold grip of the house had my limbs in its grip, pulling me unwillingly toward it. "Claire, come closer." I couldn't stop. My legs were moving. I was fighting it, but my body wasn't my own. I tried to scream, to fight it, but the words were lost, swallowed by the oppressive silence that had wrapped itself around me. The door was right in front of me now. I reached out, fingers trembling, my entire body rebelling against the force that was pulling me toward it. "Stop!" I screamed inside my head, but it was no use. My fingers brushed the doorknob. It was cold, so cold, colder than anything I'd ever felt. The moment my fingers made contact, the door swung open, but there was no room behind it. There was no escape, just darkness, a pitch-black void. I stepped back, my breath caught in my throat. There was no room, no way out, just darkness. An endless blackness pulling me in like some insatiable beast, waiting to swallow me whole. My pulse thundered in my ears, but my body wasn't listening. The house had already claimed me. And then I saw them. Faces, faces pressed against the blackness. They were moving, no, twisting, contorted in agony, their mouths open in silent screams. I couldn't scream, I couldn't cry out, I was trapped. Trapped in the same way they had been. "Help me. Don't leave me. We're part of it now." The words, the whispers, the voices, they weren't just in the air, they were inside me, inside my mind. I could feel their cold hands, their fingers pulling at me, tugging me toward the darkness. Their voices were mine now, and I couldn't stop them, I couldn't fight them. "No." The word broke from my lips, a broken, guttural cry. But it didn't matter, the walls closed in around me. The house was pulling me closer, deeper. I could feel it. My body was no longer mine. The walls were devouring me. They were pulling me in, wrapping around me like thick vines, consuming me. I tried to move again, but my body was too weak. I was being drawn in, sucked in, like a dream, but it wasn't a dream, it was real. The house, the walls, the floor, they were alive, and they were hungry. My skin prickled as the darkness swallowed me whole. The cold, the dampness, it was seeping into my bones. I was losing myself. My limbs, my breath, my heart, they were all being pulled into the walls. I gasped, trying to tear myself free, but it was futile. The house had already consumed me. And then, the whispers. They weren't just whispers anymore, they were my voice. Twisted, distorted, but unmistakable. "Welcome home, Claire." I couldn't scream, there was no sound, only the rush of my heartbeat and the dark, suffocating silence. The house had taken everything from me, my voice, my body, my soul. And the last thing I felt as I was consumed by the walls, as I became a part of it, was the suffocating weight of the darkness. I was home. I was a part of it now. The house had claimed me, and it was waiting for its next victim. The house has always been there, waiting, watching. I can feel it now, its pulse thrumming softly beneath the walls, like the heartbeat of something alive, something hungry. It's strange, but I wasn't always aware of it, not at first. When I first stepped inside, I thought I was just dealing with an old, run-down house. An abandoned mansion with a few broken windows, creaky floorboards, and a lot of dust. But now I understand. The house is alive, it breathes, it watches, and it's always waiting. My name echoes through the halls. It's no longer just mine. It belongs to the house now. It's become part of it, woven into the very fabric of the mansion, like a thread through its walls. The whispers used to terrify me, but now, they are me. The sound of my own voice has become twisted, distorted, something unrecognizable. But it's still my voice. The voice the house claimed the moment I walked through its door. Claire! It starts as a whisper, faint at first, like a shadow passing through the darkness. But the longer I listen, the louder it becomes. The walls hum with it. It's not just my name anymore. It's the names of all the others who've walked in, thinking they could escape, thinking they could sell the house or tear it down. They didn't understand. The house doesn't let you go. Not once it's claimed you. Claire, come back. The voice isn't just mine anymore. It's everyone's. Everyone who has been trapped here. Their souls are still here, stuck inside the walls, inside the house. They're the whispers. The voices that beg for release, but never get it. And now, their cries have joined mine. I can feel the house moving around me. It's shifting, breathing, closing in on the spaces I thought I understood. The walls are breathing with me, pulsing, waiting for the next lost soul to wander through its doors. The house isn't just a house. It's a prison. It's a hunter. And it never forgets. Outside, it's quiet. The wind has died, leaving only the steady, persistent hum of the house. The kind of silence that fills your ears, presses on your chest. It's as if the mansion itself is biding its time, knowing that someone else will come. Someone else will cross the threshold, step into its grip, and become part of the house. The air is thick, heavy. I can taste it in my mouth. It's waiting. The house can feel them coming. It always does. It knows when someone is nearby, when the next victim will step into its embrace. The mansion doesn't need time. It doesn't need anything but the whispers, the voices of the lost. The door at the far end of the hall creaks open. Slowly, just a crack at first. Then it widens. And behind it, darkness. That void. It's always there. The place where souls are consumed, where they disappear. It's where the house takes them, where it keeps them, forever. I know this now. I know that the house has claimed me, and I am no different from the others. I can feel my name still etched into the walls, a part of its hunger, a part of its never-ending appetite for souls. My voice is now woven into its dark fabric, like the rest, and it will never stop calling, never stop waiting. Come to us. The whispers rise, swirling through the empty hallways. It doesn't matter who hears them. They're not meant for anyone but the ones who will answer, the ones who will walk into the house and become part of it. It knows when they're coming. It always knows. The door at the far end is wide open now. I feel the pull of it, the gravity of it, drawing me closer, as if the house itself wants me to see the next one, wants me to see the next soul fall into its waiting arms. There's no resistance left in me. I can't fight it anymore. I watch as the door creaks, just like it did when I first arrived, and from the shadows beyond, I see a figure, another soul, another lost wanderer drawn in by the house's false promise. They step forward, unaware of what awaits them, unaware that the house already knows them. The whispers rise around them, wrapping around their thoughts like chains. Come to us. I can't help them. I can't warn them, just like I couldn't warn myself. The figure hesitates, caught in the pull of the house, just like I was. But it's too late. The house already has them. It's already beginning to devour them, just like it devoured me, just like it devoured everyone before me. I watch as the figure steps closer, drawn to the open door. It's inevitable now. The mansion has already made its choice. The house will wait for its next victim. It will always wait. The darkness beyond that door, where the walls close in and the voices cry out, will always be there. The house will always be hungry. and the whispers will always call. Thank you for venturing into the shadows with me here at Frightful Whispers. Remember, the darkness holds secrets, but also whispers truths to those who dare to listen. If tonight's tale sent shivers down your spine, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the fire of fright alive. Rest easy, but keep one eye open, for the night is never truly still. Until we meet again, stay vigilant, stay curious, and let the whispers guide you.